I've always been really interested in when new rules get announced by the government. You'll see in newspapers, or the government might publish like kind of breakout boxes which talk about the typical family and how the rule change impacts them. And you'll read it and you think, that's not quite me, but I kind of get it. You try to put it in the context of your unique situation. Entitlement's like the breakout box is you. It's your family, your numbers, and how the rules apply to you specifically. My vision for Entitlemate is that it's on your phone, your profile's loaded, and you can just log in at any time and see how the system's going to impact you. And there's no reason why Australian families can't understand with precision exactly their impact throughout the system, how much they're going to pay in tax, how their childcare subsidy works, eligibility for family tax benefit payments, how they work with Medicare, how they work with the PBS, how they work with the Child Gentle Benefits Scheme. This is not an unreasonable solve with the new technology that we have. There are so many budgeting apps, but there's so much work to do before you've got the money to budget with, and that's where Entitlemate fits in. So while Entitlemate is mobile first, it actually does format really well on desktop. And the reason I'm showing you on desktop is because we've got a bit more screen real estate here just to demonstrate a lot of the things that are going on with the different families. So we're going to start with Sarah and Tony. Sarah and Tony have been selected because they really do have like the greatest hits of all the different government systems to show you how they interact. Sarah works full-time. She earns $75,000 a year. Tony's working 2 days a week, earning $20,000. They've got kids, Leo and Oscar. They're both in long daycare for those 2 days that Tony's working. And the first thing that should strike you is that in the right-hand chart, we've got their annual income figure and the amount that's left over. And just what is really fascinating is the amount of stops along the way. They've got tax, Medicare, childcare fees, the childcare subsidy comes in. There's an extra state-based support for their kindergarten fees. And they've got some other government payments like family tax benefit. Part A, they've got some rent assistance there. Bringing their final weekly number, we can toggle between annual and weekly of about 1,080. So just right there, the journey from what I call pay to pocket has many stops. And I'm just going to reset it back to annual because I like looking at things in annual terms. And let's face it, the world that we live in, it's not all based in one time frame. We often refer to salary in annual terms. A lot of government payments are referred to in fortnightly terms. Childcare's paid per day, and in budgeting terms, where a lot of people often think in terms of a week as a recurring time frame. So just in itself, just organising everything neatly to say, well, if Sarah's on the bus, checking out a phone, saying, "Gosh, what is that number that we've kind of got to work with per week?" It's about $1,000. And so let's start looking into the journey from pay to pocket, starting with pay. We've got this dashboard here where it's separated into the income step, childcare, which is massive. There's a housing step and family payments. I'm just going to run through as many of these areas as I can, just to demonstrate the complexity. Now, the challenge here for a family is that you're struck by this wall of numbers, and I completely accept that it's kind of nuts, this dashboard. But the fact of the matter is these are your numbers. If it's your family, your numbers, this is how many moving parts you've got. And your challenge is to make all of this work as best you can. So looking at the income situation here, we start with a tax calculator. There's a lot of detail there. There's a lot of detail about marginal tax rates and the detail about the different components of tax. So it's not only marginal tax, there's the Medicare, and the Medicare levy surcharge can kick in. And in this case, Sarah's got some help debt as well. So out of her $75,000, you can see there is a student loan component. And the interesting thing about student debt is that, you know, it probably can kick in just at this stage when people are, you know, cash flows can get a bit crunched, you know, with young families and mortgages and this sort of thing. So what's, in terms of marginal tax rates, people hear the word marginal, they don't often are not completely clear on how that works. So the government applies percentage tax rates per dollars as you earn more. So in Sarah's case, her actual overall tax take is 20% of her income. I think that's kind of useful to know in the wash up. Tony's income of $20,000, because it's right at the juncture where tax is starting to be charged, he's actually not paying any tax, right? So that's interesting to know. Childcare cash flows are just so interesting because of the way the childcare subsidy works and how there is benefit in understanding how it works, just to see what you can uncover. So if we're exploring the childcare subsidy for this family, first thing to know is the childcare subsidy percentage, if you've got kids in childcare, you'd know exactly what that is based on your family income. Now, there is this second child uplift for families with children under 6, both in childcare. The second child gets this higher rate. But you can see by the chart, you know, obviously as family income moves, the rates applying to the first and the second child vary. Leo, the oldest child, it works in a very uniform way, but the second child boost is unusual. It's just the way the system is written. And you get this impact where, you know, even with earnings, moving, a bit higher, you know, say towards 140,000, the second child can still be on a 95% childcare subsidy. And for families that are high income, the sibling boost completely cuts out at 370,000. So a family who had a change of income could find themselves getting this substantial change in their childcare support, which is really interesting. It's what we call a cliff, and that's why. So we've got the two children, the family income puts the Leo getting a 90% childcare subsidy percentage and Oscar getting the sibling boost. That's only just the start of the story. There's more to the story than that. The family gets allocated a certain number of hours that they can have subsidised childcare, and it's 72. Leo and Oscar are well and truly below that cap, but the amount of subsidised hours maxes out at 100 hours a fortnight or 50 hours a week. And if your childcare operator is open for 12 hours a day, you can use up most of your hours in 4 days a week. So the fifth day, can become very much unsubsidised. And so that I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But you can see Leo's got an 11-hour days there, so which is fine because he's only using 2 days, so they've got enough subsidy hours. But it can impact some families. We'll talk about that in a minute. The hourly rate cap is interesting in that, you know, Leo is $155 a day. They're 11-hour days. His hourly cost is $14, which is below the hourly rate cap, right? So the subsidy is going to be applied to that number. For Oscar, he's at 10 hours a day at $175. So his hourly rate is $17.50, right? So because his hourly rate is above the rate cap, that component is not subsidised. So the childcare percentage number does not actually apply fully to his hourly rates. So that's part of the maths, and the coverage when we're talking about subsidy hours running out in the case of these two children, it's fine. However, as we said before, with one of them having 11-hour days, if he was in childcare for 5 days a week, a good chunk of Friday might not be covered. And that certainly feeds into another component of the analysis, which I'll get to. There are these different state schemes as well, which apply to kindergarten age kids. They're different in each state. The numbers of that, or the workings of that, are completely worked out in the Entitlemate app. Vacation care is really interesting as well. A lot of people can get a bit out of touch with the childcare subsidy system. Maybe they don't need after school care, and then suddenly they find themselves using vacation care. They might not still be signed up in the CCS system, but by having this 36 hours a week covered by the scheme, or 72 hours a fortnight, people can use the childcare subsidy system to get big subsidies on vacation care. So that's really interesting. So we've got a calculator for that and some details on claiming. So the mechanics of the childcare subsidy, instead of being explained generally, in the case of the app, it's explained especially as it applies to these two children. And what's interesting is that Leo, because he's on 90%, and he also gets this free kinder boost in Victoria, his childcare costs are fully funded. But for Oscar, because Oscar's actually on a 95% childcare subsidy percentage, but because his hourly rate is higher than the cap, his effective subsidy is 82%. So it's interesting in that you'd think that things would be cheaper for Oscar, but they're not. They're cheaper for Leo. So that's kind of just, sort of one example around childcare. This family, I'm just going to go over to the family payments area now. This is really, really important. This family is eligible for Family Tax Benefit Part A, Family Tax Benefit Part B, and rent assistance. It's calculated. So the allocation of this payment is obviously based on household income, but it's also based on the number of children and their ages. So if I was to vary the age and stage of the children, just so you can see the chart, you can see how the chart moves based on their ages, and it actually changes whether they're paying rent or not. So that's why it's just so hard to pin down kind of a uniform way to explain your eligibility for Family Tax Benefit Part A, because it's actually based on not just your earning, not just the number of children you have, but the ages of the children, and if you're renting as well. So it's a really challenging payment to understand. And what's also really interesting, if you're eligible for Family Tax Benefit Part A, you are eligible to participate in the Child Dental Benefit Schedule, and you get a lower Medicare safety net threshold, which I will talk about in a minute. That's very valuable to families as well. Family Tax Benefit Part B, once again, it's a really quirky payment. It's focused on families where there's one single higher income. And the beauty of the way that we've laid out the chart is that you can see how it changes if you want to, based on the children and their ages, and it's not based per child. It's just based on if you've got children. The higher income earner, it's like this. It's got this hard cut off, and then the lower income earner, it has this taper. So God knows how anyone would read the rules and then try to work out exactly how it applies to them specifically. In the case of Entitlemate, the calculation's done, and the beauty of going through and having a look at the sliders is just to see what happens around the margin, and what happens when things change is fundamental to the whole utility of the Entitlemate app, which I'm getting to. And once again, rent assistance, there's a similar kind of analysis there. Needless to say, Family Tax Benefit Part A and B and rent assistance are very important to this family's after-tax income or their family budget. So family payments are really interesting, and the safety nets. This is just one of those things that we all know with families when it's time for when winter kicks in and you're back and forth to the doctor. it's good to know that you've got a lower Medicare threshold than the general than everybody else. You know, the lower Medicare safety net is for families who receive family tax benefit Part A, people with healthcare cards, pensioners, Commonwealth Seniors Health Card. So it's not a payment, but it's a lower threshold where the government comes in and supports your out-of-pocket medical costs. And also, if you have a family, you should be registered as a family. It's something that's not automatically done, and I've got a link here to show you where to do that. Also, a link to the government's bulk billing clinics directory. And also, I put in some information there about what happens when kids turn 14. They disappear off your Medicare. To me, when it happened with my kids, it was kind of a mystery. I just sort of put it in there so it's not a mystery to you. The Child Dental Benefit Scheme is an absolute winner for children in that you get $1,158 worth of dental support over a 2-year period. So in the case of these two children, it's about $2,300 worth of value. That means that, you know, the kids can have their teeth well and truly supervised, and it's funded by the government because they're receiving family tax benefit Part A. And you could imagine, once again, that dental can be expensive, and that goes all the way to 18. It doesn't cover orthodontic treatment, but it certainly covers everything else. And if you are getting family tax benefit Part A, I think you'd get some kind of notification of the child dental benefit. It's something that has real value to families in keeping their kids' teeth on track. So there's the pharmaceutical benefit scheme. You don't get the concessional pharmaceutical benefit scheme unless you get the full rate of family tax benefit Part A. Once again, this is captured by the app. If that is your situation, it shows up. We've got this kind of fast checkup section as well, which is really interesting. So if this family was in the system and it could see that they're eligible for family tax benefit Part A, Entitlemate app tells them that they're eligible. You don't get family tax benefit Part A unless you apply for it. And same with family tax benefit Part B, and then again the cascading benefit. And look, it's also worth noting that you can backclaim family tax benefit. So if you found out now that you might have been eligible last year, you can make a claim for the previous year and get yourself set up for this year. And also the app's good for helping people keep track of what family tax benefit payment they can expect, because as your income changes, if you've overclaimed on family tax benefit, you have to pay it back. So it's just worthwhile helping you keep track and plan. There's a quick warning that Oscar's hourly rate is above the cap. Now, once again, this is not a cause for alarm, but it's good to know because you might be expecting that 95% of his childcare costs are covered, but they're not because he's above the cap. Once again, it's just about knowing. There's a quick link to the vacation care calculator. But we've got this really, really cool functionality now in that because we've got all the different engines running at the same time, if you move the income, you can quickly just see how it impacts childcare subsidy, family tax benefit, maybe increase repayment of student loan, to work out if Sarah gets a $10,000 pay rise, she keeps only 33% of it, right? And that is because $10,000 obviously has tax paid at the marginal rate, which is over 30%, which is fine. Then she gets into a new area where she's got to pay more student loan. So that's not a tax, but it is an impost to household cash flow, which might be very important to a young family, which, I mean, it's definitely going to be important to a young family. And $2,000 in reduced payments. So that's reduced, family tax benefit Part A, Part B, and childcare, potential childcare subsidy support. So that's really interesting to know that if $10,000 comes into the mix, how much of it is actually going to be reaching the family bottom line. And in fact, for Sarah, if you've got $20,000 pay rise, still 67% of it is absorbed by tax and reduced payments. So it's called the workforce disincentive rate, and it's very acute for families. To take that to the next level, this is I think one of the more exciting things about the app is that the decisions about work component. So what we do here is we take Sarah's fixed, and Tony is what we'd call the secondary income earner. I mean, we could always invert this, but Tony's working 2 days and he's got scope to work more days. And so what we do is we look at what happens if he works an extra day, taking into account the cost of putting the kids in childcare, the reduced childcare subsidy because there's more income, tax, reduction in family tax benefit, Part A and Part B. And you can see that Tony's, if Tony works on a Friday, he's $10 worse off, right? So it's not worth him working on a Friday. And actually, Wednesday and Thursday's not so great either. And the main reason for that is just the reduction of the childcare subsidy. And in fact, if he works 5 days, he would still keep the family tax benefit Part A, so he wouldn't be losing the Medicare safety net, but he'd be getting close. So to me, this is where it all leads to, making good decisions about work and knowing exactly what you get for a day's work. Now, this is not to diminish the value of work for work's sake or career or whatever. This is just saying if you work an extra day, how much reaches the family budget? And it's different for everyone. This is a really important point. It is different for everyone. So that's really interesting. And we've also got a whole section on parental leave pay. If Sarah's pregnant, they're going to be very clear on the timeline for when the payment window is, when they can claim, and which income and work test applies. In their case, they're co-parenting. Sarah's earning 70, Tony's earning 20. They're definitely going to be eligible to meet the income test. The income test is a very, very complicated test. What's been surprising to me is that the primary earner can be earning, 500,000, and the secondary earner, 170,000, and then the secondary earner can qualify. It also has this kind of overall family limit as well. So all of that is in the app. The income test is really clear. But what I think is grossly misunderstood in terms of parental leave pay is around the payment rules. So in this case, this couple would have the opportunity to work out who has the lower income years, and then be able to allocate these payments accordingly if they shift their payments away from employers to Centrelink. The parental leave pay section goes all the way through this. In fact, I have a separate site set up that just focuses on all this, just called Parental Leave Pay, which has come about as a result of all the work that I've done in trying to understand parental leave pay. I just think there's so much opportunity for people to get this pay into their systems in a way where they pay less tax. The challenge with parental leave pay is it's a taxable payment. Then it comes with all this flexibility that can be used over a 2-year period, and optimising where those payments go is a family's opportunity to save on tax. However, of course, with 2 kids in the mix and having another child, trying to optimise all this would be, a complete, a financial nightmare. And this is the kind of thing that the tools are trying to address. So that's an example of Sarah and Tony, and they're a couple with a young family. We do have a whole range of scenarios in there, and just one other scenario I'd like to to highlight that the app's not just for young families. Here's Tony and Sarah with Lucas and Sienna and Oliver. Oliver's at school. Lucas is at home and at uni, and Sienna is away. And what these guys are eligible for, or Lucas is 22, so he's eligible for the stay-at-home youth allowance. Sienna is at uni interstate. She's also eligible for youth allowance and rent assistance. And we've got this whole student dashboard that we've been building. That's fantastic for students to be able to track eligibility for youth allowance, how it ties into their health card, Medicare safety nets, associated concessions, and how they manage their earnings to optimise the payment. We're probably going to do some separate work on that, but just very keen to highlight that. And just before I sign off, I've got a scenario where I'm just going to go back to the family. Got a scenario here of a family with what I'd call urban exhaustion. 2 adults, 2 children, $375,000 worth of income. And if you look at this, the way the shape of their journey from pay to pocket, you can see they pay a lot of tax, high amount of childcare fees with a low amount of childcare subsidy, and associated with high income families is normally high mortgage. So you can find that the household cash flow difference between like a very high earning family after tax, after their reduced childcare subsidy support, normally associated with living in high mortgage areas, their household cash flows can be actually quite similar, and that's something that I found very interesting. Anyway, that's an introduction to the app. It's optimized for mobile. This has been a desktop presentation. There are other components that I haven't talked about, particularly in this case, by the way, around mortgage sensitivity. So we've been able to model I think 10 or 12 lenders specific loan maths. So the user just has to give their last repayment, the amount of their loan, and with these components then we can backfill and basically have a replica of their model, of their mortgage maths, so they can really quickly see the impact of interest rate rises on their system and understand their sensitivities there. So obviously building a whole system for families to have their own dashboard and understand the sensitivities of work. In this situation here, this is Chloe. She's got an income of $175,000. Because of the way the system works and their childcare costs, she's well and truly worse off working on a Friday, but not everybody is. And the whole point of this is to have your numbers in there to understand your sensitivities and to understand how things are working with you and the system over time. And that's kind of the heart of the Entitlemate app. So I hope this has been useful. There's probably going to be more focused components of this. This is an overview, particularly for people who are working with young families, who are trying to help them understand their interaction with the system. That's what Entitlement's about. So I hope it's been useful.